Welcome to our Think Spring edition of Partners for Community Living. I'm Judy, Leasure, and as always, I'm very honored and pleased to ask you to join us for the next about an hour as we talk about issues relevant to what's happening in our community. And even during this program, we'll be talking about some things that are happening around the state as well. So we invite you to join us as we have three very accomplished and respected gentlemen on our panel to talk about some issues that have meaning at this time and that will have meaning for more of us as we move into 2016 and 2017 and beyond, as all of us who are baby boomers will be moving into new phases of our lives and things as well. I'm very pleased to welcome some familiar faces, but we're going to have a few different things to talk about during this program. So we'll have some new things to talk about. Directly across from me is Mark Schlater, who is the Executive Director of Toward Independence. And seated next to him is his friend. I think they're friends, they're friendly with each other, is Tom Weaver, who is the Executive Director of Choices in Community Living. And then right across from them is their other friend of the three amigos here is Mr. Pete Roll, who is the Executive Director of the Resident Home Association. And seated here in the form of these three gentlemen, you will see 30 years. If you look at Tom, it's 30 years this year for Choices in Community Living as a provider, providing services for people with developmental disabilities. You look right next to him at Mark, and he's got Choices beat by 10 years. This year will be 40 years for Toward Independence as a fellow provider of taking care of and meeting the needs of people with developmental disabilities. And Pete won't be in on the celebrations this year. He's planning for next year when Resident Home becomes probably one of the oldest providers in the state, if not the oldest, when they celebrate 50 years as a service provider, which is a remarkable achievement. And I think Pete's probably only the second or third executive director of that agency.
I'm the second.
Second, so within 50 years, that tells you of the continuity and the consistency and the service that they've been able to provide over the years.
And Tom and Mark are quick to point out that I look like I've been there 50 years.
Yes.
So.
Well,
half a century.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
he
who's
started
counting?
when he was 2 weeks old, Brenda. And just a reminder, all of the agencies that we have on our panel with us right now, they do provide services and supports for people with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and a range of other developmental disabilities. And we're going to talk some during the program about service and service providers and what they do for people with developmental disabilities. But we ask that you keep in mind that as we're talking about this particular group, that we keep in the back of our minds that we may be talking about a broader group of people as the years unwind here, as the needs for people as we all get older increase. And so what we're talking about today may be very pertinent to what I will be needing in the future, or some of us will be needing in the future as well. Let's go over and let's just talk very briefly about what your services are. And we'll just go Mark, Tom, and Pete and just say, here are your services, and then we'll go into some of the details that we want to hit on.
Sure. Toward Independence, we're located in Xenia, Ohio, as our home office, 81 East Main Street in Xenia. We serve individuals with developmental disabilities in Montgomery County here locally, in Greene County, Clark County, and we also cover all of Hamilton County, so we've got a lot of services there. We provide, obviously, our big service that we push as far as covering the services for individuals with developmental disabilities in residential settings across all 4 counties. But we also provide adult day services as well. So during the day, activities, integration into the community, and providing those type of services. The direct services that we provide, obviously, homemaker personal care, just routine activities. Integration in the community is a big thing. Obviously, getting our individuals out in the community, wherever they live, be part of the community is a big push for us. So,
I think it's important to note that to our audience who may not know is that when you talk about services for people with developmental disabilities, you're really kind of talking about two different ways that it could be done, maybe three. The county boards themselves in Ohio all are currently doing services and providing that. They not only raise funds for the services that go on, but they also are a provider of services. And then almost 50 years ago, maybe a little bit older than that, the state of Ohio developed the process where private providers, like the three of us represent, came into being. And around Ohio now, there are probably somewhere in the neighborhood I guess 200, 300 private agency providers. They could be profits, for-profits or not-for-profits. The three of us are all not-for-profit entities. And actually, there's another way too, and there's independent providers now in the state and around throughout Ohio. And this could be just a single individual that provides services for people with developmental disabilities. Choices in community living we're the young kid on the block, I guess, compared to these folks. We came into being in 1985. We're a very small agency at the time. We actually were a spinoff of Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities back then. We had 3 group homes and a couple guys living in apartments. And since then, we've grown to where we're serving about 150 people now in residential settings in Preble, Montgomery, Clark, and Madison County. And we do residential services, which are your typical group homes, or people might live in apartments and those kind of settings. We have shared living program services where somebody might actually live in a home with another person, somebody who wants to be the caregiver for somebody and support them. And we also do some day program services, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later. It's a growing area for all of us, and as the counties stop being so much a provider of service, that's going to create the need for agencies like us to step up and do more of that kind of service going forward. So,
One thing I want to add, and just to piggyback a little bit, Tom, and I'm sure Pete will say the same thing. In the residential world, we provide as little as what they may need, and that means drop-in services, maybe just to help them balance a checkbook or making sure their medication was taken, individual has their medication, some critical things, but it could be very limited, short duration services. But also we provide full range up to the other side of the coin from the standpoint of 24-hour care, awake staff, overnight staff, comprehensive care for very intricate needs of our individuals who, a variety of needs. So we pretty much hit the whole gambit of services.
So for the Resident Home Association, we came into being in 1966. Our first house was on Lexington Avenue. It also served as our office as well. Resident Home grew out of a family organization that came together and wanted to put some services in place for their children when they could no longer provide the care. And out of that grew an agency that now serves 80 people in residential settings. Now, our primary focus is residential. That's what we grew up with, and many of our residents have remained with us for this entire 50-year period, or 49 years, I should say. But in addition to providing residential services, we provide respite care, we provide some adult day services, we have non-medical transportation, we do respite care. So we try to make ourselves available to the community and provide services that people need and people want. And hopefully we've been able to do that for a period of time. Things are evolving now, so we're going to probably branch out into some even different services over time. So it's kind of an interesting time for all of us, for people that receive services and for people that provide services. So I think we're very fortunate to be able to do that. I think that the people that receive services today and into the future are very fortunate that there's an evolving system that's in place, and it's up to providers like us to make sure that we're there to meet the needs of the people and meet the needs of people that want different services.
yeah.
And I think one of the important things, you as providers and similar providers across the state, to note about your particular services, especially your residential services, is that those are lifelong services that once a person comes to Choices or toward Independence or to Resident Home Association, in all likelihood they will live out their lives. and
Yeah.
that the services are 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not a 6 weeks class or a semester or anything like that. What you're taking on is a family commitment.
That's very true. I mean, we're so much different than other organizations. You know, usually you're kind of a sunset kind of service that you provide, but you're absolutely right. When folks come to our organizations, we intend to serve them for their lifetime. Now, they have choice, and they may not like where they're living or where they want to go, and so they can fire us as a provider and maybe go toward independence or resident home, and you know, those things happen sometimes. But that's what's beautiful about the system, and it's very empowering to the individual to have that power to do that. And I think it makes for better services because to some extent we know that, and we work to provide, not only because we want to do the right thing, because it makes good business sense for us to do good services for people.
And I think, Mark, you said something about, or Tom maybe it was, that 200 to 300 providers across the state right now. Serving about how many people would you estimate right now that the total number across Ohio or
Yeah,
receiving
somewhere
services?
around
So actually,
17, 18.
yeah, 17,500 is the last count, just from the State Department of Developmental Disabilities. So that's
Yeah.
a lot of people being served, and a lot of needs are out there.
Yeah.
And I think the other end of that is that we want to say that's the number being served, but let's look at your three agencies and look at you as not only service providers but as community employers.
Oh, absolutely.
And between the three of you, just these three agencies right in our region, how many employees are employed through your agencies?
Well, we have almost 300.
And we're about the same.
400.
And
We're
we're a little
about
bit smaller.
100.
We have 80 people that
Yeah.
we're employed.
Yeah,
So we're looking right around 700
yeah.
people working, employed at this time.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And in most cases, they're full-time jobs with benefits.
Mhm.
And you know, we're always looking for people to come and join us because there's people that need some help. And
Yeah.
you know, when you work in this field, it is deeply rewarding. You get to establish relationships and make a difference in the lives of people that you serve. So there's a lot of good that comes from this, both from the people that receive services, but also for the people that provide them.
Well, Judy, I know you brought up earlier, obviously our focus is on individuals with developmental disabilities, but the entire healthcare across the board in Ohio, but obviously let's focus on the 3 or 4 counties we're in, tremendous amount of services needed in the future. As people get older, aging populations, people, you know, the healthcare field is just being, that's the largest growing market, of need of individuals. The upcoming budget, the state budget, talks about 3,000 new individuals will be served in the next 2 years, needing services coming up and funding, try to get funding for that. That alone is the need for jobs. They're there. And we encourage anybody watching this show tonight, if they're interested in working in the field of developmental disabilities, as Pete made a comment, it is tremendously rewarding. It changes your life. You actually get into this program. What better commitment that you can make is to actually change somebody's life for the better. It's a great, rewarding experience.
Yeah, we were joking about it when we talked earlier about finding that person with the right stuff. You know,
Right.
and it's like I was talking about my niece, who has a job in Iowa, and she got a job working in this field, and she Facebooked out to her friends today how lucky she feels that she's been working in this field now as direct support professionals. That's what we call people who work right with individuals in the homes or provide services for them. And how lucky she feels that she has that job because it's so fulfilling. And I think that's, you know, we talked about it. It's hard to put a hand on it, on how nice it is to go to a job where you're kind of sort of part of a family kind of atmosphere, and you're helping take care of people, and they get to know you, and they get to care about you. You get to know the people you're serving, and it's could go on for years and years, and you're part of that, and you're providing a very valuable service for someone. And boy, that's, you know, there's a lot of people that's, and we're wanting those people to come and talk to us about employment, because we love to have you.
I know one point I want to make is we talked earlier about natural transition. Myself, I had 3 children. At a certain point, they move out and they start their life.
Right.
But at some point, in their 20s, it's time to move out and get a job and move into the community and start their lives. We do the same thing. Families with a child with developmental disabilities, it says at some point there's a natural transition. Hey, it's time for you to get on your own. And that's where we come in. I think one of the things I use for our staff who are working, you're the catalyst that makes things happen. You're the idea. You put it all together for an individual to integrate into the community, do what they want to do. You just make the connections happen and follow their lead to make that happen. And as you said, it's tremendously rewarding. It can be a lifelong 30, 40-year commitment if you really wanted to make it, because obviously, as you said, we're not catching them at the end of life. We're catching them when they want to try to get into life and really make their mark on the community.
Let's talk a little bit about, we're using the word transition, but another word for change and all. And I think over 50 years, and all those 50 years that Pete's been there, over the 50 years and the 40 years and the 30 years.
You look so good for being there.
I do age pretty well,
He
yes.
does age well. And certainly all the years I've been involved in the field as well, we've never been at a lack for changes. At a system level and at a local level and all. And we're certainly at one of those points now where there's more a sense of change than there has been, say, in the last 10 or 15 years. And let's talk just for a few minutes, if we can, about what that change is coming from the state and federal level, as how it's going to impact people with disabilities and how it's going to impact agencies that provide those services. And then once we set that stage, then maybe let's talk a little bit about the most important people in your agencies and what they do. But what is this transition and this change that's coming now that some people may have heard about, and some people are just getting bits and pieces of it, but what's happening?
Well, if I was going to capture it in a few words, I would say that the biggest change that's coming are more opportunities for people with disabilities, developmental disabilities. Now, there's been, one of the things that happened is the Center for Medicaid Services, federal government, came down with a definition of what they define as being community. And of course, they have a lot of clout in our system because they're primarily paying 60% or more of the expense for services like what we provide around through not only Ohio, but through the whole country. And so when they define community, that carries a lot of weight. And in Ohio, it's making some changes now for, there's a strong look at all of the services that are not very integrated into the community by their definition. And what that is probably going to do more than anything is really light a fire under all of us providers to go out and find more ways, more opportunities for those kind of services to be community kind of included kind of services. For example, rather than sheltered employment, which is kind of the typical thing that you have in Ohio, sheltered workshops, just about every county has one. There's a real push on to offer people real work in the community if it can happen. Now, that option has always been there, but what the emphasis now is to really kind of crank that up, gear that up, and maybe take the person, the individual who says, yeah, I'd like to maybe take a look at something in the community. We're going to have more resource devoted on trying to find those opportunities in the community, and more time spent with that person to really take a good look at what that job's like, develop a strong relationship with the employer, and really try to make something work if it's possible. Those kind of things, I think, are what, employment is a big one. There's some effort to also take a strong look at the institutions that are already existing in Ohio, some of the bigger settings. And I think there's always going to be a need for an institution or kind of services like that in Ohio because they serve the most difficult and hard to serve people right now. But little by little, we're learning how those folks can actually be served out in the community. And as we get better at doing that, and then the need for an institution or as much of an institution is going to kind of fade away. And of course, here in Dayton, the big news on the street is, of course, that Montgomery Developmental Center right out in the Huber Heights area has been slated to be closed, I believe, by July of 2017, if I'm not right.
Correct.
Yep.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Not all of those folks are going to move out into the community. There's about 100 plus some people living there right now. Some will move to other institutions throughout the state, but hopefully there'll be a number of them where us or other providers like us will be able to make a place for them in the community and learn how to serve them in the community.
And when you're talking about institutions, we have that old vision of what an institution was. Can you give a little more clarification on what this kind of an institution would look like, what it means, as so that we're not looking at that far away, hidden 8,000 people in isolation and segregated away from everyone? It's more a residential setting in a community.
Well, if you're looking at a place like MDC, places like MDC came along, after the closing of Orient. Mm-hmm. And there were a bunch of people living at Orient, and there was a need to find some other congregate living. Some people moved into group homes like we all operate. Some have moved into smaller intermediate care facilities for people that are developmentally disabled. Some have moved into Montgomery Developmental Centers or Youngstown, or pick your choice. Those places were different than Orient. They had cottages or had like a campus setting. And some of those places work quite well for certain people. They're not for everybody. And so, there's been a lot of lawsuits along the way that have told the developmental centers, and actually told the state of Ohio, you need to limit the number of people that are in these larger settings. We don't want them so much a part of the community, we want them to become a part of the community. And so the whole drive is to take the people in those settings that can be managed in the homes that we provide and that other people provide, that where their health and safety are foremost in our minds, but get those people into places that perhaps they can flourish. It's not that they're, in some cases they're treated poorly where they live, but as they were, at Orient, we've evolved as a society and as service delivery people. So those places, although they're well intended, they're not meant for everybody. So the idea is to get those people out and let them live in a place that perhaps you and I would like to live in.
And I think an important point is just when you surely talk about institutions, it's a state-run, state-funded, and operated. So the locations that we all operate are literally private, nonprofit. We all have probably a board of directors that monitor our services. They want to make sure we stay true to our values, our mission statement, and our focus and our return on our investment is going to be right back to the individuals we serve, and obviously to the individuals, the employees, and everybody working with our organization to try to make it the best it can be. But clearly, it's shrinking the state budget, and I think that's a big point. But those dollars then transfer into the community, which we hope new jobs will be. And we also, as Pete mentioned, we integrate those individuals into the community where they need to be so they can see it. Other people need to know they're part of our community, just like everyone else equally.
One of the things that we talked about earlier, it is important as we start doing that, those resources are going to have to be spun back into us, because we've built ways of helping people that are around services for people that don't require a great deal of real serious training for like maybe behavioral challenges or medical challenges. But as we start serving some of the more difficult individuals, we're going to need a little bit more resources, a little bit more training, and a little bit more funding to manage all the stuff that goes along with that.
Yeah, we talk about, having people come back and integrate into the community, but it does take some resources to do that. I think we would all tell you that taking on the service delivery models that we have and serving the people that we have over the years, it's been very rewarding, but sometimes the resources haven't followed as effectively as they should. And so, we would really like to see, as we, help people move into our communities, that there are resources there to help them be successful. I mean, that's the bottom line. We want people to be successful, and I think there's an understanding, among us, but I think also on the state level that they're going to have to do something to make sure that people have a smooth transition and move into a safe place. And I think that's what we all want.
Peter, I think that's a great segue into kind of what we're dealing with today. State budget. It's right now, today. It's being fought like anything else in our capital. Right now, there's people providing testimony. But one of the big important factors is this year, what we're talking is how much money in the field of developmental disability, specifically what we provide, residential services and adult day services, what do we need? And the big push right now is to provide more funding toward DSPs, direct service professionals. And so one of the things anybody listening to this show can do now is talk to your state legislators. You can write letters, you can go on the website, you can go on and post your comments electronically. But what we're really asking for is support wage increases and specifically funding for people with developmental disabilities and residential services in their community. That's the only way this is all going to work.
Well, I think we've seen on national news and certainly on our local news in recent months some of the people at Walmart stores, some of the employees that have walked out because of wages, and some of the people even at McDonald's are signing petitions and wanting more wages and all. And the people who are at the heart of these agencies and those other 200 or 300 agencies across the state that make it possible for people to be successful haven't done that yet. They haven't had their voices heard, and I think that's one of the things that Governor Kasich wants to do in this new budget. And can you tell us what he wants to do as far as raising wages for first of all, tell us what direct care professionals are, as opposed, what they do within the framework of your agencies that make them so critically important.
Sure.
And then what is Governor Kasich doing, and what's the goal, and what's we're talking about the work that needs to be done to talk to our legislators and our elected officials. Tell us about direct support professionals, what they do, and where they are now as far as wages, and what we're hoping some good changes will happen in the near future for them.
One of the things that Mark and I were sharing earlier is a comment that the direct support professional is where it really happens. It's where the rubber meets the road in terms of what we do. I think Mark coined it earlier. He said, it doesn't matter what Peter, Mark, or I do in our office. What matters the most is what that direct support professional is doing out in the home and the services they give. And it's a very, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's not a job that you can go in and be half asleep and just walk through the day. It's a complicated, and it's a job that requires your heart to be open, your mind to be open, you're paying attention to the folks you're interacting with, you're sensitive to what's going on with them. You got to put yourself in their shoes, and you got to exercise your empathy, exercise your common sense in making good judgment how to support people and help them have a meaningful life. It's a job that requires extreme relationship intelligence, personal intelligence, to be able to be real good at it. And we've got some really good folks, and of course we're wanting to get even more folks like that to come work for us, which is why we feel so passionately about, we don't want to just have to pick up, the joke, and it's like, oh yeah, they're alive, they're breathing, I see, vapor on the mirror. So we want to get those high quality, good people who can come and work and do the kinds of things that we would all want for our loved one if we were providing, if your loved one was, or if you yourself were living in the services we provide. You want a really good person there to take care of you. And that's what we're striving for. That's why we want to work so hard to make sure that these folks are paid competitively to what their job is really worth in the marketplace out there.
So, you make a really good point about, the kind of care that you would like to receive. So, we kind of joked earlier about, being in the field for 50 years and what that means. But if you look at our society in general, and we're talking about people with disabilities, people that don't have disabilities. We're talking about a population where many people, the baby boomers, are getting to the point where they're going to need some
Yep.
direct support, just like our folks need now. And so there's going to be a tremendous need and a tremendous opportunity for people that want to provide that type of care to actually come and work and make a living doing that. And it doesn't matter whether the person's disabled or not. I mean, our focus is on people with developmental disabilities, but the fact of the matter is, all of us as human beings, at some point in time, are going to require that type of care.
Yep.
And so it's really important that our younger folks know that these positions are available, and that over time, there's a lot of people looking at this right now saying, how can we make this better for the people that are providing those services? And so I do think that we have some people that are listening to that. Mark said there's people giving testimony right now. Our hope is that testimony is heard and acted upon. I think Governor Kasich is actually in our corner on this.
Right.
We just need some more help from our legislators to come through and understand that we're not just talking about people with developmental disabilities. We're talking about a human need, and to set the stage for the human need that it's going to touch everybody. And I'm hopeful that they'll be able to come to some conclusions that will be beneficial to the people that are providing services now, but also those that are doing it in the future.
Governor Kasich did put an increase in his proposed budget, and that's really what a lot of the conversation is about right now up in Columbus, is talking about it. 6% increase for the direct support wages. That's not going to get it to what we would hope it could get to, but it's a great push, and we certainly appreciate the governor's effort to pay attention and to support us in making those wages a little bit higher.
And when you hear 6%, somebody would say, wow, I'd like to get a 6% increase. But when you couple that with, you say it's probably been 10 years with a 1% increase.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that all of your agencies, and I would imagine it's the same for all of those 200 or 300 agencies across the state, that you not only have to be advocates for the people that need the services, you have to be advocates for the people providing those services, because you actually have employees that must rely on food stamps or insurance coverage. They don't have the benefit. Talk a little, because we're not talking about people that you want to talk about what, the wage level's very low right now. And as much as you want those good quality people, and you still get them, and they're still there. And I know you've got people that have been there almost as long as the agency. Chris has been there how many years?
Since 1980, she's been around.
1980. So people do stay and all. But talk about that level of when we're comparing these wages to somebody that works, a teenager that works at McDonald's or something.
Well, clearly, I mean, somebody made a comment, and for me, they nailed it the other day. The reality, the state budget, for me, when I look at this, it's really trying to take the funding that's needed for an individual direct support professional to change the concept from this is a job, but now it's a career. And if you can do that, if you can provide the funding that's necessary to really help somebody transition so that it is a career for them, it's a job that they're going to stay at for a long time. And that's an important piece, because that's what the most disrupting aspect of serving somebody with a developmental disability, whether it's in a group home or on a day-to-day basis, is change. Changing individuals in and out of the home, moving people. They want consistency, and everybody wants that in their life. So does our individuals we serve. So if we can provide a living wage, a good wage for individuals to really be bonded to our individuals, to stay for the long haul, and to really get to know that individual, it impacts them personally. I can guarantee it. It did it for me, but it also will do consistency in providing the best possible care for the most vulnerable people, obviously in Ohio. They need our services each and every day. And I want to speak up honestly, because I speak about this all the time. Direct service professionals, unbelievably, across the board. And you made a point earlier. I say that's where the magic happens. Our reputation as a quality provider, obviously Pete and Tom's programs are quality providers. It doesn't start with us. It starts, as you said, at the point of contact with the individual with a developmental disability. And we need to reward those individuals, our direct service professionals, who come in on weekends, evenings, holidays, overnight shifts. This winter was horrible. When you're thinking about, and I talk about this, you know, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and our
And their
staff are getting
workshops
up.
are closed.
Yep,
and-
and our staff are getting up, scraping windows, and why? Because they've got to be somewhere to make sure somebody's cared for. Or it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're doing the overnight shift. And, you know, we got to reward these individuals for the quality of work. You know, they're taking somebody's lives in their hands, and they're providing the best possible care. So we need to advocate. You need to call Columbus. You need to call your state legislators. You need to push for this wage increase, the 6%, and that's just the starting point, because we really need to get competitive wages out there for people who provide the best possible care for the most vulnerable people in Ohio.
And Tom certainly had a prime example just a couple of weeks ago, and when you're talking about it, sometimes it's life and death.
Yeah.
We heard about one of your homes that one of your staff members had a client, a lady in her home, who took her medication. She had given her medication, and one of the pills went down wrong, and she was choking, and without even thinking about it, because of her training. He said she was amazed at herself. It never ever entered her head that she had to stop and think about it. She immediately did the Heimlich maneuver and saved that lady's life.
Right.
And she said it was just second nature. Said we've been trained to know what we're supposed to do, and so it is life changing, life and death kind of services and quality of life services that we're talking about. It's the quality of life.
It's meaningful. I know we've been talking about it all night, but it's meaningful. I emailed back my niece when I got her message, and for me, it was life-changing, because when I started doing this, I don't want to tell you how long ago that was, but I really had no intention. I didn't know about these kind of services, and I had a summer job, you know, where I found out about working in a sheltered workshop and learned about serving and working with people with developmental disabilities, and I just fell in love with it. And it immediately, for me, it was like, it was a no-brainer. This is what I wanted to do with my life. It feels good, you know, to be able to provide that kind of care. You know, you're saving somebody, but it's like you're part of a family. You're part of something that is bigger than just going and, you know, selling a product or something like that. It's something that where you really feel good about. And of course, there's lots of stories that you can tell when you go home too. But you're not allowed to do that because it's HIPAA. You know, so we don't really talk about those stories. Well, you know, one of the things that I did want to say, though, you know, our job, our collective job, is to take care of the caregivers, and that's what we're essentially trying to do here. That's a message we're trying to sell, and hope that our legislators understand that if we want to have a win-win, where we have 700 some people in our community making a good wage and providing an excellent service back to the most vulnerable people in our community, to me that sounds like a self-perpetuating win-win-win. And
it's good for the overall economy because those people are employed.
Right. And I'm honestly, real quick, I mean, all three of our agencies, we have jobs available today. There are full-time positions with benefits. If you're interested, obviously, we may be at the end of the day how you can contact each of us. But
do it now. Talk about if they want to find out about Toward Independence and the jobs that you have available. What's a contact?
898.
Tom's going to steal them.
No, call 937-376-3996 and Toward Independence out of Xenia. You can ask for a human resource department. Tell them you're interested in working as a direct service professional, or whatever you just want to inquire. You can visit our website as well, Toward Independence. If you Google that, you'll find us real easily. But encourage anybody who's looking for a full-time position. Obviously, I'm just saying in the Miami Valley area, we got jobs for you. And I think we're hopeful with the funding that potentially will come to the state budget. It'll make it a career for yourself.
You know, something to note is, you know, even though we are different entities, we are, the three of us
we
are
work together.
not-for-profits.
Yep.
We're doing the same kind of service, and we really don't care. I mean, we do care maybe, but you know, we really work for the best interest of the person with developmental disability and our teams, and we just really do hope that somebody, you know, those good people with the right stuff might come and
so
work
what's a number for your human resources?
Well, you can find us on Partners for Community Living, the website, and that's something that RHA and our agency share. For choices, if you wanted to go directly to us, the number is 898-2220.
He was going to take
Yeah,
your
you can take my number.
and Pete, yours.
Well, as Tom said, for the Resident Home Association, we share a website with partnersohio.com. And there's a tab up there for both choices in community living and resident home, so you can find out about opportunities and actually research a little bit about who both of us are.
Right.
But if you want to do get some information specifically about resident home, in addition to the website, you can call 937-278-0791, and you can ask for me.
Go straight to the source.
That's right.
Go straight to the source. Let's see if we can sum it up as to what, for people who have stayed with us and who've been patient with us and heard the stories and heard about the needs and all. What would we like people to do? We would like them to do what? To support this. What would we want people out there to do? Write a letter, make a phone call?
Well, I think that would be excellent if folks, if you know somebody, even if you don't know somebody, but you're touched a little bit about our message, our mission, what it is we're trying to do, absolutely. Go on the website and send an email to your local representative, state representative from this area. You could.
And we're telling them to what? To
Support,
support
funding, wage increases.
for direct support professionals.
Right, be
So
specific
that's the
about
wording
it.
we want them to
Right.
to talk about is that,
Greater opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. Yeah.
and to urge them to continue the quality that we have and to increase the quality we have, and to be able to meet the new needs that you're talking about that are going to be coming.
Right.
So, and I'm sure that the elected officials, they're all listed, and I know the League of Women Voters has a wonderful booklet that if you have a chance to get a hold of that, lists all the elected officials in the area and their regions, or they're all online. So all you'd have to do is put your
Right. Zip
elected
code in,
officials, put their
and,
name in there or something, and it'll come up, and you can send them an email and say, we really heard about this, or we have some kind of a relationship. It's amazing, the network, when you start going, oh yes, my cousin had a sister that had a person with a disability or something, so I know the work that they do, or my sister has worked for Resident Home for 20 years.
Right.
Or,
And I think I want to make a point is community matters. Families matter to call in. I can call in, but maybe I'm an agency, so they're thinking maybe I got a bias in it. People that need to call are obviously the family members and the community members. Contact your local state representatives. Hey, my aunt, my uncle, my brother, my sister, are being served, and I need you to provide the best possible. Help me provide the best possible services for my relative. If you call, obviously you can go on the websites we talked about. Department, I'm going to imagine ODMRDD, Department of Developmental Disabilities website.
Yeah, you Google DODD, you'll get the
DODD, yes,
Right.
as simple as DODD.
And you can go on and find information. But again, clearly, you can write a letter, get with your local legislators, and just tell them, call them. You can leave voicemail. It's real easy to do. And just saying, hey, I support the state budget for people with developmental disabilities, and I want a living wage for the direct support professionals.
And I would think that direct support professionals would play a big hand in that as well.
Absolutely.
They would be prime candidates. And you might think it's self-serving, but when you really look at what they do, and we've all acknowledged that they're the backbones of
Right.
our organizations. And more importantly, they're the backbones and they're the livelihood of the people that are getting services. If it's not for people with, if it were not for direct support professionals, none of the people that we have would be served. So and we want them to be served, we want them to be served well, and we want the direct support professionals to benefit from that. And we think that they could also help us in getting this message to the people that are going to make a difference.
And Pete, you make a great point. And today's important, but what we talked about, it's going to be even more important 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years. The baby boomers coming in, but the reality is what we just talked about. All the new services and the downsizing, some of the state institutions, some of the people transitioning out of the larger congregate settings, coming into the community, those all require more staff. And the time now is critical. We need more staff in the field. We encourage people to apply, get these jobs. They're available. We hope the funding comes through. But for the future services for people who are waiting to come in, the waiting list is ridiculous in Ohio. There's a lot of people wanting services. We just need the staff to be able to serve them.
And we might be able to even offer some opportunities for the baby boomers themselves who are
That's a good point.
retiring.
We talked about
but
this.
they want maybe
Absolutely.
a little bit something extra, 10, 20 hours to do something that's meaningful and give back. And so we
And don't forget that we even have an active volunteer program.
and a
If,
volunteer.
if
Yes,
they're
we do.
retired and saying,
Absolutely.
I don't want
Yeah.
to deal with that employment anymore, but I might not mind going out maybe once a month or to an activity, one of our activities or something.
Sure.
So this is critically important, and the quality of life is critically important, and that's, I think, we talked about this very, very serious issue, but one of the other ways that we do add quality to life is the kind of things that we partner together on to provide in the community and to provide community integration kind of activities for people and to invite the community to come and be a part of what we do. And we have a couple of those really great events that we partner with and have such a great time with coming up. And one is in April 17th, and Mark is, I know Mark is thrilled because it's going to be at Toward Independence this year.
Yes.
81 East Main Street
Xenia.
in Xenia.
Right.
And it is our 8th annual Art and Soul Juried Art Exhibit. And for people that have been to this, they come back every year because once you see it, you just have to be back and see it. It is a 22 county regional juried art exhibit, which means that we have 3 professional artists from our region that come in, and when we get our almost 200 pieces that are submitted this year, and we have them all out on the tables without framing or matting or anything at that point, and those 3 professional artists go through and they don't know if the person that did the artwork, if they have autism, they don't know if they're a person in a wheelchair, they don't know if they're a person with Down syndrome. They're judging on the merit of the art and what the art looks like. And they'll stand for minutes and say, oh, this is sort of like, this is a little bit like Monet. Do you see the way that's going? And we're saying, these people don't know who may not know who Monet are, but they would appreciate that comparison or something. And they go through that, and they pick out the top 40. And then at our opening reception, and this year again at 81 East Main Street at Toward Independence, we bring those 40 artists in and give them a big night and let the public come in and visit and see all the art. And then we do awards, which includes the top 10. And these 3 gentlemen have an award they picked out. They got to pick out one, and we as the coordinators got to pick out one. So and to see the faces. And to see what happens when people are recognized for their creativity.
It's a thrill for them.
It's a thrill, and I mean, it just, the place just explodes in that energy, it's just amazing.
Now here's my question, Judy. Usually you and I fight over
We
the piece
do.
of
Well-
art that we're going to buy. Have you already picked yours out?
And Tom got a rooster one year. I wasn't vying for that, but he was proud to get a rooster one. But beautiful art, and we must say that we're really so appreciative of the sponsors because we're able to fund this every year with the sponsors that come to us and believe in the same mission that we do, that people with developmental disabilities have the same artistic expression and need for a creative outlet that all of us do. And so Greene County Board and the Montgomery County Board and the Warren County Board and Butler and Hamilton, they come together and make this possible. And every one of those pieces is professionally matted and professionally framed. And so when you get it, you've got a ready to hang masterpiece on your wall. And the pieces are for sale. You can buy them that night. Or this year the exhibit will be up out there till the 24th of April. So people can come in. And you have one bistro in there now, which is a food truck.
They're coming every Thursday.
Every Thursday, so they could come in and have lunch, and so the art's going to be up.
That would be a great idea to do.
To come and see the art. And but join us on that night. It's 6 to 8:30, and it's free and open to the public.
Right, there's hors d'oeuvres and
Wine
cheese
and hors
wine
d'oeuvres and excited artists, and I think Tom, Pete, and Mark get as excited about distributing
It's a great time.
because we're able to give cash awards, which again says what you do is valuable, and if it's sold, of course, the artist gets their money for selling their art. So it's a really great. So April 17th, Toward Independence, 81 East Main Street in Xenia, and come out and have a great time with us. It's a good way to get to know us a little better if you're thinking about maybe thinking about, well, what is this really like or something. Come out and meet some of the people and meet the artists and meet staff and everything, and it'd be a good chance to do that without making a full commitment
Yeah.
yet or something.
Good.
And then of course, we don't get away too much in May. We have then Dining with the Stars. Yay, Dining with the Stars. And we're really excited this year that we're out at El Mason. And they have been really welcoming to us. And if you haven't joined us in past years for Dining with the Stars, we have some great friends from business and the media in the area that join us, and they come out and we have a great dinner, and they help serve and do all kinds of things. They may sing a song for you or dance, or Tom and Pete may put on a boa and sing "I Feel Pretty."
Oh my!
All kinds of
Again.
wonderful, all kinds of wonderful things.
Forget the words.
We get the tips then, and of course those tips come to Partners for Community Living, and then help support some of the things we do. And I'm going to try to remember. You guys will have to help me. Let's see. We've got Larry Hanskin, who is the voice of the UD Flyers and WHIO Radio.
Christian
we
Hahn.
have Nancy Wilson and Fry Guy from K99. We have Gabriel Enright and John Paul from Channel 7. We have Natasha Williams from Channel 2245. We have Christian Hahn from Joseph Toyota. Do we have anybody else? Who am I forgetting?
I
think
think
you
you
got 'em
pretty
all.
much nailed it.
But they'll all be there, and they said they want you to come out, and they don't mind if you ask them to tell a joke, dance. We, in previous years, did terrible things to Fry Guy from K99 when we were at a Thai restaurant, and he had to eat sushi for a large tip. And we have promised him this year he will not be asked to
Yeah.
eat sushi. So he's happy
Well,
to
we
come.
do appreciate the fact that he did eat the
But
sushi.
he did, for a nice
Yeah.
tip, he did that. And we are May 19th at El Mason in West Carrollton. You can call 278-0791 and ask for Pam Skelly, and she can put you on the list for tickets. It'll be a great night and for a great cause. And then, of course, I think at our next program here at the station, we will talk more about our bowl-a-thon at that point. So that'll be following that. But we've got April 17th, May 19th, and great times if you enjoy the arts, if you enjoy going out to dinner with family or anything. And we do want to say, too, just in passing, we're getting close, that we're at the end of March, but March is officially at the national level DD Awareness Month. And I believe the theme this year was I Can, which is saying, to all of us that a person with a disability can do the same kind of things. They can work, they can go to church, they can recreate, they can go to events, they can bowl, and they can live in a family just like all of us. So that was a great time to remember that. And I'm sure that all of the panelists would tell you that if you would like to learn more about us, have us come out and do a presentation, talk about our agencies or anything,
Absolutely.
call us at any time, and we're very happy to come and make presentations. You can call or go online, www.partnersohio.com, and you'll get more information there. Or call me directly, and I can get you with Mark or Tom or Pete, whoever you need to get to, 898-3655, and that's my office at Partners for Community Living. And we would be happy to meet with you. It doesn't have to be DD Awareness Month. We're open at any time during the year to come out and meet with you and talk to a school class or a group or a business group, whatever you might have an interest in, and learn more about this. So in passing, a brief 30-second or so from each of you about.
Well, I would like to just get a plug in real quick. Our principal fundraiser is Walk for Independence.
There you go.
And there's one other thing, big change this year. We pushed it back to July 3rd. Sure, there's a play on words here, Walk for Independence in July, and it's for us. And we hope everybody supports that. It's on July 3rd. It's First Friday in Xenia. They're shutting down the downtown area. It's a July 4th celebration, but we're going to kind of piggyback that, and it's our walk to raise funds for our individuals we serve. As you say, a lot of people we serve need a lot of those extras. Second pair of glasses when they break, Medicaid doesn't pay it. Some people come to us really with nothing on their back, literally, and we have to come up with the funding to make sure that they got their needs met. And we use the development fund, these funds, to help support that. So,
And we will put that on our website
Sure,
as well,
appreciate
on the www.partnersohio.com, so you can learn more
Right.
about that, because we always support each other's
Yep.
events
Right.
and activities and have people out there and all. So we really appreciate the work that the people that make this all possible. You know, that we're there to make sure that we can raise the funds for clothing and shoes and all, but it's those direct support people that
Right.
make sure that people have a family.
Sure.
You know, live in a
Yes.
family in a safe and nurturing place in the community. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that quality also starts at the top with these three agencies. That you couldn't find three better executive directors anywhere in the state of Ohio than
Did you pay her for
Mr.
that?
Mark Schlater, Tom Weaver,
I do
and
pay
Pete
her for
Roll.
that.
We're very fortunate in this community that we have this level of service and commitment and the commitment to mission that you all represent. And I thank you for being a part of this program with us this time, and I'm sure we'll call on you again. And until we meet again, thank you for being with Partners for Community Living.